people are much more open to using MSG these days over the last couple of years. And a lot of that has to do with whether it's like chefs, restaurateurs, creators, nutritionists, and doctors that have made such a massive impact on the industry and like the regular consumer to educate them that it's a safe and delicious product to use.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Eliza Barbanel. Calvin Ng is the chef and owner of Bonnie's, a very popular Cantonese-American restaurant in Williamsburg. He's also the author of a great new cookbook, Salt, Sugar, MSG, an introduction to his unique style of home cooking, co-written with his partner Phoebe Melnick. It's so fun to have Calvin in the studio to talk about growing up in New York's many Chinatowns, developing recipes for home cooks instead of line cooks, and more. Calvin Ng, this is Taste. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I made you come into Midtown on like the coldest day we've had so far, so I feel a little bad about that.
All good. I definitely only come out here probably like once a year.
Yeah, it's an occasion. Are you going to try to like eat anywhere while you're up in Midtown, or you're just going to go down to the restaurant?
No, I'll probably head back to Chinatown first. A quick little pit stop.
Oh, what are you going to get?
Grab a couple things. I mean, I always try to hit Yuji Shimo whenever I'm in like Chinatown, like the rice noodle shop. Mm-hmm. That's like my go-to spot for like a quick little snack before I hop back on the train.
I feel like a steamed like rice roll or like a plump rice noodle in this kind of weather is the most like comforting thing you could have.
Yeah, literally.
So the reason to have you in the studio today is to talk about your new cookbook, Salt, Sugar, MSG, which is such a fun cookbook, I think, as the title maybe suggests. And the first thing I saw when I opened it is this picture of a heart tattoo that says MSG in the middle. Is that your tattoo?
Yes, that is my tattoo on my left, behind my left elbow. And it's actually a drawing that Phoebe, my fiance slash like co-author and partner of this cookbook, she randomly drew for me one day, like 5 years ago at this point. And I was like, that's sick. Like, I want to get that tatted. And that same night, we literally went to somewhere in Greenpoint that was open and had like availability. And I got this done really quickly from this girl. And when I was getting it done, she literally asked me if this was from Madison Square Garden. And then literally in that moment, I was like, oh God, am I making this massive mistake right now?
I feel like only in New York, it could have multiple meanings. Probably everywhere else, it's clear. Why the MSG tattoo?
Because I love it. It was probably at that time I already knew I wanted to just educate people on the ingredient because it had such a negative connotation and people weren't messing with it. And I think more people should because it's already scientifically proven that it's a safe ingredient and a delicious ingredient. So it was important for me to kind of show that and be a number one fan.
Yeah, have
for
you
life
gotten,
now.
Like the Ajinomoto sponsorship yet? I feel like they should be giving you free MSG for life now.
Yeah, we've done a couple Ajinomoto events and sponsorship deals that have been very, very good to us in the last couple of years.
Were you working in food at the time that you got that tattoo?
I was working at I was a CDC at Winsun at the time. And that's when we would order like 100-pound barrels every couple of weeks. Actually, a funny story, like most New York City restaurants, we have basements and all deliveries come through like this hatch on the sidewalk down to the basement. And we had like a little ramp that basically the purveyors would like slide everything down and then someone would be down there catching it. And then one of the sous chefs was at the bottom of it trying to catch this 100-pound barrel of MSG. With the speed of the ramp, it literally crushed her foot. And she was out of commission for quite some time. But it's just wild to think about. A 100-pound barrel of MSG is what crushed her foot.
Yeah, that comes at you fast, I would imagine.
But it's very on brand for us and on brand that happened. Out of all things that could have fallen. Yeah,
that's so funny. And I feel like you're referring to this a little bit, but even probably over the past 5 years that you got that tattoo, I think that MSG and the way that it's been viewed has changed, at least in like mainstream food media, like food culture here in America. On the menu at Bonnie's, you have the MSG martini. Have you encountered that people's view about MSG has changed even since getting that tattoo?
Yeah, 100%. I think people are much more open to using MSG these days over the last couple of years. And a lot of that has to do with whether it's like chefs, restaurateurs, creators, nutritionists, and doctors and even like no MSG campaigns that you've probably seen throughout the last couple of years that have made such a massive impact on the industry and like the regular consumer to educate them that it's a safe and delicious product to use. A lot of people who have high blood pressure probably should be using it because it does contain less salt and allows them to use less salt in their cooking, but makes their food taste better.
I didn't even know that. That's so interesting. So obviously, based on the title of the book, if I'm going to cook your recipes, I need salt, sugar, and MSG. I'm curious if there are a couple other ingredients you would shout out as being like particularly pivotal in your home cooking or in the recipes in this book.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of condiments, a lot of sauces could be like very intimidating to purchase. I think like Chinese supermarkets specifically, like the aisles have so many different brands, so many different products. Like even for soy sauce, for example, there's a million different brands. And I think a lot of Chinese families and Chinese moms are very loyal to very specific brands that they use in their cooking. And they like pass that loyalty down to their kids. So like I'm very loyal to a lot of brands that I use at home today. I know other families use other different brands, but even like my pantry at home, I always have Lee Kum Kee premium oyster sauce. I'll always have like Pearl River Bridge light and dark soy sauces or different like fermented bean curds and things like that. Like there's a lot of condiments I'll always have on deck. And then there's like another part of the book that kind of talks about the part of the pantry that like you make. And those ingredients are kind of like your ginger scallion and like my version of that, which is like with a little green chili and pickled mustard green. So it's like a little bit of acid, a little bit of heat. There's like Chinese hot mustard, XO sauce, things like that you don't really buy or you can't really buy that you would always have in the fridge as like staples.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying about the specific brand loyalty. And I imagine that kind of factors into these ideas of like how something tastes like what mom used to make. Like partially that comes down to what ingredients mom was buying and using as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when a lot of times when recipes just call for soy sauce, it's like, which one, what kind, dark, light. It's like every culture has their own soy sauce. There's like Japanese, there's Chinese, there's Taiwanese. They're all extremely different if you were to like blind taste test them all.
Yeah, I love that. Like the infinite kaleidoscope of soy sauce that's out there. And talking about your mom, one of the things I really enjoyed about this book and making my way through and reading it is you talk about your family history here in New York, your mom growing up on Bayard Street in Chinatown, you growing up in South Brooklyn, but returning to Manhattan, Chinatown to kind of see your grandparents and just kind of having this childhood in the city. And I'm curious, like, you know, you mentioned one place you're going to go to maybe for lunch in Chinatown after this, but if there are any other spots in Manhattan, Chinatown that you would recommend people go to, whether they live here or they're just kind of visiting the city?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like Manhattan, Chinatown specifically has changed so much over the last couple of years. Like I grew up, like my grandparents lived there for like 50, almost 60 years, like 50, 60 years. And that's where my mom immigrated to when she first came over from Hong Kong into America. That's where she lived until she got married, and then she moved to Bay Ridge with my dad, where I grew up as well. But there's spots that I would hit up now, or probably like I mentioned earlier, Yishimo for like rice noodles. That's like a newer spot that's really good. King's Kitchen on like East Broadway for like Cantonese roast meats. Those are like my spots. And then like Kong Kee for just like fresh rice noodles, places like that. And the Grand Street Skewer Cart that's there at nighttime is another like banger that I'll always hit if I'm in the neighborhood at night. There's a lot of spots I grew up to that just don't even exist anymore, unfortunately. Like Hop Sing was like a really cool spot, which is Bridges now. 69 Bayard was another really good like late night spot that doesn't exist. And there's a lot of other spots that still exist, but it's just new ownership, new chefs. Everything's totally different, so it's just not the same anymore, unfortunately, for a lot of spots.
Do you go to any of the grocery stores down there?
Yeah, I do a lot of shopping down there. Because growing up, when we went to Chinatown every weekend as a kid, my mom would always, it would be a reason to see her parents, my grandparents, and also a reason for her to grocery shop for the week. So like she would bop around to all the supermarkets, all the stores, along like Mott and Elizabeth. She showed me where to get like, each store had like different things. You never go to like one supermarket. It was never like a one-stop shop. Like one spot you get your noodles, one spot you get your produce, one spot you get your dried seafood, one spot would be like your fresh seafood kind of thing. So I do hit up Chinatown pretty often these days, whether it's like for myself or for the restaurant.
Yeah. Do you go to the other Chinatowns in the city, like in Sunset Park or Flushing also?
Yeah. So since I grew up in Bay Ridge, Sunset Park is like the closest Chinatown to us. but we only hit that once in a while if we needed something like last minute, but not really that often because my grandparents were in Chinatown. So it was like a reason to go there specifically. But these days there's another smaller little Chinatown as well in Brooklyn, more in like Bensonhurst. Like Chinese people love eight. It means like prosperity. That's what it sounds like the little translation of it. So you always find like Sunset Park is heavy Mexican community and also heavy like Chinese community, depending on what avenue you're on. So like the Chinese community, Chinatown would be on like 8th Avenue. And then like the other one in Bensonhurst would be like on 18th Avenue. So these days we kind of hit up both once in a while. I'll like take my mom to one of those just because it's easier and faster to like get her groceries and stuff like that. But I never really hit up Flushing Chinatown as a kid, because I think Flushing Chinatown's mainly at the time was more Korean and more like Northern Chinese. And my family is like Southern Chinese. So we spoke Cantonese and Toisanese, which is like a very specific dialect of Cantonese. And Flushing was more Mandarin. And so we weren't able to like communicate. So it wasn't something we ever hit up growing up. But these days I do go once in a while. And it's just so different. It's massive. There's so much to explore and eat.
Yeah, it's totally huge. And I think also that Chinatown and Flushing kind of developed later on than these other Chinatowns that we're talking about. You see that even in the pattern of immigration of who was coming there. And so it makes sense that, maybe in the era that your family was kind of shopping around together and you were growing up here, like you're going to stay closer to home than kind of travel out to this new Chinatown that's developing.
Yeah, exactly. Like the first wave of immigrants that came were from Southern China. We're from like Toisan specifically, where both sides of my family are from. So yes, that's why exactly it makes sense that we're only hitting those areas up.
I feel like it's so lucky to live in a city like New York where we can talk about like 4 different Chinatowns that you can go to and that they each have their own kind of thing going on. It's really special.
Yeah, and they're all kind of close to each other. They're not like that far.
Yeah.
Like miles wise, time wise, yeah, far and long. But
and even like energy wise, like they feel very far apart.
Yeah.
But especially if you had a car, you could probably go to all of them.
Definitely.
So I want to get some more insight into kind of your perspective on food. We talked before that you were the CDC at Winsun, and now you're the chef owner at Bonnie's, which is a really popular and fun, like Cantonese American kind of restaurant in Brooklyn. And I'm curious, like maybe even since opening Bonnie's, what have you learned about what kind of food people are looking to eat when they're going out here in New York? Is there anything on the menu that you're especially proud of or you think really kind of emblemizes what you're trying to do with food?
Yeah, I think what people really want to eat and what they do eat based on like sales and data, I guess for us, as we look at that every single week, is what they see pictures of and what's like on the internet. So like month after month, week after week, our number one seller has always been our char siu big rib. That wasn't like going into it, that wasn't our intention or goal to make like this viral or photogenic dish. Our goal is to make something tasty and make sense for the menu. But that's like what people will always go for, I feel like, is what they see, which makes sense. It's like sometimes I'll look at a restaurant's Instagram or a restaurant's like website, see a couple photos. Like I'm a visual person as well. I'll see, oh, that looks good. I'll get it. And that's what everyone else is getting. It's probably going to be good kind of thing. So it's hard to know like what people really want other than like what they know will be good or what they've heard or what that like has been written about, I guess.
Yeah, I think especially at restaurants that are, maybe like not the easiest reservation to get or not a place that you're going to all the time. When you go, you feel like you have to like, you can't waste that opportunity and you can't miss the thing that everyone is saying to get. But it does kind of create this perpetuating cycle where then that's the thing that everyone is ordering.
Yeah, which is funny because like, I'm not going to name the restaurant that I've been to, but I went to a spot and I've been many times and I was like, I'm going to get everything that I've never gotten before and get everything that no one talks about. And it just wasn't good. Now I kind of get why.
Now you get it. And we actually talked about this char siu rib back in the day for a taste article because it used to be named after a McDonald's item that I think maybe you're not allowed to do that anymore.
Yeah, so obviously it was named after the famous sandwich at McDonald's. And
the famous rib sandwich that we're not going to name yet.
It was inspired by that. But they sent a cease and desist letter a couple years in. And I looked up the guy who like sent me that email and apparently that's like his job. He's done this for like 20 years. He works at McDonald's. on the law team. And that's what he goes after, people who use similar names. So we reached out to a lawyer, and we also like had to, so we basically like, you have to change the name. So we changed it. We held like a competition on Instagram to kind of see what names we should change it to. And then the winner was going to get free ribs for a year. So that was all of 2024. And we ended up changing it to Bic Rib. So the B could be for Bonnie's, the B could be for Brooklyn, the B could be for whatever.
Has the winner cashed in a lot of ribs? Do you know?
He came a bunch, but he's actually gluten-free. So he couldn't even eat the bun. So every time he came with like a date or a friend, they would be eating it.
I can't imagine rolling up with a date and then having to explain the reason why you're getting so many of this ribs that you won the Instagram. Actually, maybe it would go in your favor on a date. I think I would be pretty impressed with somebody if that was the reason why they were getting all of the ribs.
Yeah, it's a cool little flex.
I'm Nomi Fry.
I'm Vincent Cunningham.
I'm Alex Schwartz, and we are Critics at Large, a podcast from The New Yorker. Guys, what do we do on the show every week?
We look into the startling maw of our culture and try to figure something out.
That's right. We take something that's going on in the culture now. Maybe it's a movie, maybe it's a book, maybe it's just kind of a trend.
And we expand it across culture as kind of a pattern or a template.
Join us on Critics at Large from The New Yorker. New episodes drop every Thursday. Follow wherever you get your podcasts.
So I imagine that approaching writing a cookbook versus developing menu items in the restaurant maybe isn't like the same skill set, just because like you wouldn't necessarily ask a home cook to do the same thing that you do in the restaurant. How do you feel like your home cooking style and the recipes in this book, like, are they the same, or do you feel like it's kind of a different version of your Cantonese American cooking?
No, I think in this book is definitely for home cooks.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we were writing the proposal, that's kind of when we decided that we want this to be a home cookbook, because I think at the time, like our lives were evolving so much. Like we sent this book proposal out at the hospital when my partner gave birth to our son Levi, because it was due that day. So like our lives were just changing so drastically, so quickly, that my style of cooking was also changing with it, because my lifestyle from restaurant life kind of became like home dad life and family life. So I was trying to cook. My hours were different. The things I was cooking was different. So it just naturally evolved into like this home cookbook and kind of like the recipes that we cook now as a family for everybody. But it was very, very difficult for me to write recipes for a home cook and not like for the restaurant. Like it was not easy for me at all, because when I like read a recipe, I don't even read like the process. I'll like look at the ingredients, I'll look at the title, and then I'll probably just go and make it. But that's why when I was writing the recipes, had like 5 steps, like 5 words in the process, and then Phoebe was like helping me break it down further and further. Like a recipe for me would be like a quarter of a page, and we stretched it out to like 2 pages because it needed to be for home cook. So it was definitely not an easy process for me at all to like make that transition and flip my brain, because my brain just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and that's because you know the technique of how to make something if you see the ingredients, so you know how to put it together. But someone reading a cookbook who doesn't have that kind of kitchen experience needs a little bit more like explanation and handholding along the way.
Yeah, exactly. And also some of the things that I originally wanted to do were just too technical, or not even technical, just too messy and too fussy to do at home. And no one's going to do that. So I had to think back, like, would I do it? Would I make it? If with the kid running around, will I spend an hour making dinner? Like, absolutely not. And I can't expect someone else to. So we had to like ditch those or like flip those or change those recipes. Like, for example, one of the recipes is like this crispy sheet pan noodle dish. And at the restaurant, or like at any restaurant, it's like pan fried or deep fried. But at home, it's like it actually works really well, just baked in the oven on a sheet tray. It literally tastes the same. You would have no idea. And that kind of came from like Hetty McKinnon's book. She had like a crispy ramen sheet pan type of thing. And I was like, that's genius. And it works.
I love that. And I love just going back to being in the hospital, like while your partner is like gonna have a baby and then having another due date at the same time. That's your book. There's a lot of symbolism there. And even having like the reality check of having a kid while you're developing the recipes. So you're thinking about like time and how you're using it in a different way. I think it makes a lot of sense. And
we also tested it. We tested all the recipes in this book in our old apartment, which was like under 600 square feet, and electric like induction Frigidaire range. And it was above, we used to live above the restaurant. And I guess I could have cheated and go downstairs, but I wanted to like keep it true. It's like a home cooked book. And like if it works in this tiny little apartment with this dinky stove, then it's going to work for most.
Yeah, I love that. I think it makes me feel safe as a home cook who has like a New York City kitchen without a dishwasher or like a convection oven or anything, to know that the recipes were designed in a similar environment.
Yeah, no convection. Perfect.
I want to talk more about what it was like working on the book with Phoebe, because it seems like it was kind of a partnership. How did you guys work together, and like how is this book kind of a product of your combined efforts?
Yeah, so Phoebe is like so organized and smart and like well spoken. Like we were not writers. Like she's not a writer, I'm not a writer, but she works in food media as a video producer and like is really good at like storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like the key part of it. Like she helped me build out the restaurant, helped me build that story and like dig all these things out of me, because those aren't my strong suits. But she was able to like do that for me. So I knew she'd be like the perfect partner to write this book with me, especially at this point in our lives. Like I said, the book is evolving and like the style of cooking is evolving into what this is. She was just the perfect person to do it with. But I don't know how other people write cookbooks or how it works when you're not living together.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, it was just like chaos in my mind. Like she would have a full-time job. I was running a restaurant. We have this newborn. We had to meet all these deadlines. And I would just remember one night I was just like holding Levi, rocking him to sleep. And she was in the other room working on the book. And I had like AirPods in, and she would just like talk and ask me all these questions from the room next door. And I would be like texting her answers back just so I wouldn't wake him up. It was just nuts. We would work on this thing at every free moment, free second we had, just to meet all the deadlines to get this done in time.
That's so wild. Did you just have like, I don't know, I'm picturing whiteboards or like pieces of paper on the wall with string in between them, like about all of the things you guys were working on? Like was all the food you were eating at home the recipes you were developing for the book?
Yeah, pretty much. Everything we were eating were things that we were working on at the time for probably at least like a 6-7 month stretch. I remember I would like newborns nap all the time. So I would have to test this out throughout the day. I remember just like bringing the Vitamix to the bathroom and closing the door and like whisking on the floor with a towel just to not wake anyone up in this tiny apartment.
I feel like he's going to grow up to be the kind of person that can sleep anywhere, you know, because there's like that white noise in the background. That's a great gift you could give your kid,
That's
actually.
True.
He's going to be sleeping on planes for the rest of his life.
Fingers crossed.
Are there any dishes in the book that you think really encapsulate the way that your cooking has evolved or the way that you're cooking now?
I mean, I think so. I think definitely like that sheet pan noodle dish I was talking about, like the congee arancini. I think it's like a really good mishmash and like a very simple one to execute at home. Or even like the clams casino kind of dish. It's like a fun like weeknight easy thing, pop in the oven. I think everything in the book is much more quicker of a process than what I would have done like 3 years ago.
Yeah. I really liked the dessert section also. And you kind of write about how you used to not really be a dessert person, but now that you have a family and a home with somebody who is, that you have kind of expanded your cooking to include desserts as well.
Yeah. Phoebe's a big ice cream person. I remember during COVID, when we were together, we would eat like an ice cream sundae every day. And then I got hooked.
Because you thought that's what it meant to be a good boyfriend, is to eat an ice cream sundae every day with someone.
Whatever she wanted.
Yeah. How do you feel about dessert today?
I do like a little sweet treat once in a while.
And the fruit plate, I feel like that's like a cornerstone of the menu at Bonnie's. And you have a whole section about how to write a good fruit plate. I'm curious if there are any like tips you would especially call out to someone who wants to be upping their fruit plate game.
Yeah, a plate of fruit, a fresh plate of cut fruit after a meal is like a perfect. I think when someone makes you like a beautiful dish, it's like their way of showing their love for you, because it takes time to like curate and source like a bunch of different fruit. It's not like just a plate of apples. It's like a bunch of different things that to peel and cut and present and clean and only get like serve the perfect ripe ones and things like that. Like curating the perfect one is really just like having a good variety of fruits, because you want sweet, you want acidic fruits, you want different textures. A lot of them should be in season, just should be ripe. Like heavy fruit is juicy fruit, things like that. I think putting together this like perfect little plate is just a perfect little treat after a meal, like a heavy meal.
I like that. How do you feel about like putting salt and chili on fruit or lime or any kind of dressing it up? Are you in favor?
Phoebe doesn't, but I'm about it. I douse my mangoes in tahini and my peaches, like really soft, almost rotten, mushy peaches, doused in that and then just spooned. I'll eat that all day.
That sounds really good. I'm from LA, so I love eating tahini on my fruit. Or also like dried sumac, I think is really good on citrus because it kind of brings out that citrusy flavor that it already has.
Yeah, I'm about it. A little MSG. Oof.
Oh, yeah. I really have not been using my MSG to the full effect. I have some in my pantry. I'll use it in some dishes, but I feel like putting the MSG on fruit would be my next evolution of fruit eating.
Yeah, you should hit it. A little salt, sugar, MSG. I mean, I just love savory. I mean, I prefer savory over sweets any day. So just whenever I'm eating sweets, I always try to find a little savory component in there as well.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you about the cookbook shoot also because I love the photos that Alex Lau shot and just even seeing some of the BTS in the book itself. It just seemed like it was a lot of work, but also really fun. And I'm curious how that experience was for you.
The photo shoot was definitely my favorite part of the whole experience. It was just such a fun experience to see it all come together and with such a talented team. Because Alex Lau was my number one choice for photographer. I know he's very picky about the books he works on because that's not his favorite thing to do is shooting cookbooks. And he'll say that to anyone. So I was very grateful that he was down to shoot mine. I've gotten to know him over the last couple of years because I just respected his work. He became a good friend. So I hit him up first, and then I hit him up to see if he knew anyone who he would want to work with to be the food and prop stylist because I wanted the vibe and the energy to be good and everyone to work well together. And I trusted him. So I trusted he would bring in cool people that we would also enjoy working with. So we brought on Tina as a food stylist and Nicole as a prop stylist. And they were just a dream team together. I remember just the first couple of days, Tina, they're all used to working with big talent. And I was little peanuts to them probably. I was a nobody to them. But Tina she treats the talent like talent, and she wanted me to have that experience. So I was hovering over her the first couple of days, just making sure everything was good. But this is how she works. She wants the talent to just sit back and relax and just oversee and not have to do anything. And I'm not used to that. I'm very hands-on and want to do everything. So when she brought a whole crew to make everything, I was like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
It was just funny. I mean, after we were done shooting, we did everything in 6.5 days, which apparently is unheard of. And then we didn't know that. We've never done a book before, but we were just trying to fit it in with everyone's schedule, organizing it logistically to make it work with 8 different people's schedules was impossible. So we had no choice but to force it all into 6.5 days. But we got it done in time. It was 6 studio days, half day at my mom's house. We had Alex's dogs were on set most of the days. We had 2 toddlers running around. It felt like chaos, but we got it done. It was a blast.
Yeah, I feel like the sense of fun really comes across in all of those photos. And Tina is such a pro. I have had the opportunity to work with her a couple of times, and she just makes everyone feel so calm. I feel like that's a good energy to have on set.
Yeah, she's so sweet, so nice. She would be making family meal, making breakfast for everyone on top of banging all these recipes out.
Because you didn't have enough food to eat on set already.
I think we were all tired of Chinese food for a little bit.
Yeah.
And a couple Popeyes days.
Oh, I love that. That sounds so good. I'm curious if your son Levi was eating any of the food in this book or any of the food on set by the time he had his teeth and everything.
Yeah, I mean, he was testing a lot of this stuff at home and on set. The buttery oyster sauce noodles was one of his favorites that he's shot eating in the book. Because growing up, I would always, my mom and my grandma would always just boil pasta, throw in oyster sauce, hoisin sauce, a little sesame oil, and that was a meal for me. And then all my other friends were eating just buttered noodles, plain buttered noodles. What's there to eat? It's gross. There's no flavor. And then I've grown to appreciate just buttered noodles as well. So I think combining that was kind of it made a perfect, delicious dish. And now he chows that. And also, he really liked the beefy black bean tofu dish with rice. Because I think in the beginning when he didn't have teeth, that was the perfect thing to eat.
Yeah, soft and squishy.
Yeah.
I really love that kind of oyster sauce, hoisin sauce, buttered noodle dish. I feel like that would be a really good, like, it's good for kids and also good for adults, like maybe after a night out, especially. It's a
Yeah.
good, like, pantry pasta to make.
It's like so easy, and you just throw a couple things in that you have in the fridge. It's like perfect. Jazz it up if you want to throw some herbs.
So I know you just finished this book and you have the restaurant and so many other things to do, but I'm curious if you feel like you enjoy writing cookbooks, if it's something you would want to do more of in the future.
I think with the right timing, it could be. I think for us, it was just very, very difficult. It was not easy. Did I enjoy the process? Sometimes. And sometimes it was just like, why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
It was just so hard juggling everything with work and home, like for both of us. So I think maybe in the far, far, far future.
I think for now, enjoy this book that
Yes.
you've completed and is coming out into the world and reap all of the benefits of that and like don't have to think about it.
Exactly.
So to close today, I want to play a rapid fire like taste check game with you. So I'll give you some questions and you just give me like the first answer that comes into your head.
Sounds good.
Okay. Your go-to late night bodega snack.
Late night, I'm probably just hitting the halal cart. I don't really hit the bodega late night.
What are you getting at the halal cart?
Mix over rice, a lot of white, a little hot.
Perfect order. Your favorite dim sum spot in the city?
Park Asia in Sunset Park. It's where we celebrate my son's 100-day party as well.
Oh. Your bagel order?
Everything bagel with cream cheese and bacon. Not toasted, but just has to be like fresh.
Mm. Okay, what you would consider to be the best sandwich of all time?
Just bacon, egg, and cheese on a roll. It's classic. Like I don't even do salt, pepper, ketchup. I think there's enough salt from the cheese and the bacon.
It's a real New York answer. Your favorite thing on the menu at Bonnie's right now?
Definitely the haptoha, the shrimp and walnuts. I think that's like, it's always my favorite dish when I go out to eat with my family and we go to like banquet dinners. It's been my favorite dish growing up. Been still my favorite dish. And it's like the one dish on the menu we didn't like try to do our way. We didn't like bonify it. It's just the classic dish, but done the best way possible.
So good. The best fruit to put on a seasonal fruit plate, like right now, wintertime.
Citrus. A lot of good citrus. Well, it's like so many different orange varieties. You got pomelos. You got also many different kumquat varieties. And yeah. And oranges just symbolize like gold. So Chinese people love oranges and citrus.
Your favorite grocery store in New York?
I do hit up H Mart a lot. The one in Long Island City specifically.
Oh, I haven't been to that one.
Oh my God. It's like pretty new and it's huge. And they have like, it's a Korean supermarket, but they have a lot of Chinese products and they have a lot of Western products. So it's like a one-stop shop for me. And there's a parking lot.
Whoa. Okay, next level.
Yeah, they got it all.
And finally, a fictional scene like from a book or a movie that you wish you could eat in real life.
I'm reading a lot of only like kids books lately. So Jamboree is a good one. It's just about all these made up berries and jams and I don't know, it just reminds me of like summertime. Just chowing on berries, unlimited berries.
I feel like kids' books have low-key the best food scenes. There are so many, like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Bread
Exactly.
and Jam for Francis. Like, it's such a good answer always. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Calvin. It was so much fun talking with you.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Austin Tedesco, welcome to This Is Taste. It's great to talk with you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm a huge fan of the show.
Well, I appreciate it. We're big fans of Substack here at Taste, and I just have to say what you've been doing and building is so cool and really important. We'll talk about an article I wrote in 2020 where I was really bullish on Substack then as much as I am now. I also want to have you in the studio for a full episode. You've got a really cool career. You've worked in restaurants. You've worked in digital media as well. And really, you read a terrific Substack yourself. We'll get to that. You got to hit the subscribe button. Bangers and Jams. Listener, I'm going to link into it. It's a really, really great read. We link to it in our Friday newsletter from time to time. You have a really cool point of view. I think you really have a singular take on a restaurant. I think it's either in or it's out in your book. And I think your Seoul recap was terrific too. Make sure to check that out. It's a great look at Seoul. I mean, how do you think about new restaurants? Because I think you're pretty omnivorous with your restaurant appetite is from reading you and checking out your socials. like what gets you excited about checking out a place? Like what's the Austin like? What's the shit test for you?
Yeah, so I had this dinner party as part of my Substack in November. I stupidly did it the weekend before Thanksgiving, so I just spent 10 days cooking nonstop. And I think our mutual friend Bill Addison, the food critic for LA Times, told me that I write like LA is my wife and New York is my mistress that I just desperately need to like bang when I'm traveling. And I do think there's some truth to that I get very easily wrapped up in the like romance of a hot new restaurant when it hits. I wrote about this, going to Bridges during the opening month, seeing all of my friends there randomly, trying the Comte tart for the first time and being blown away, flirting with the waiter and getting too drunk. Like that's what I love. That's what I remember. And it's a kind of special thing that only happens at a new spot you go to the first time. And I think, as you know really well, is so rare. It's such a tough thing to pull off. I've worked at a restaurant that just opened as a line cook, and like we frankly didn't have that. I was desperate for us to have it, and we did it. And I went to Dunsmore in LA last night, which is not new, but it's new to me. I tried it once and really didn't like it. I'm from the South, and to me, they do like um, I call it like Southern cosplay in a way for people who are like in not in the South and trying to do that thing, and to me not super well. And so I tried it again last night and it just didn't hit. And there's that like deflating sense of trying a place for the first or second time, and it not executing on what it's trying to be specifically. That is what I think most places do, because it's really, really hard. Running a restaurant is impossible. Working in a restaurant is impossible. And so when something magical happens, like I think is happening at Bridges and Penny in particular, I find it overwhelming in a way I just love.
Well, I love the Bill Addison, turn of phrase describing your restaurant habits. Well, gotta love Bill there.
He's a much better writer than me, and I love to just steal his words.
Well, you both have your skills, and I did follow the ups and downs of Cool World as well, even before I started reading you. And I know you worked there, and you know what? We're gonna table that for your visit here IRL, because I do want to tap into what it was like to work for a failed restaurant, because I think that you have like really good insight into that. But I do want to talk about Substack because, again, really, really, really important for food media. And I think just for our listeners who know the name but don't really know the platform, describe what you're doing at Substack specifically for food writers, food creators, recipe writers. You see all types of writing on Substack. What are you guys providing for them?
Yeah, so I oversee creator partnerships at Substack. The primary thing I'm focused on in food is showing people that they can use the Substack app to find a better alternative to this broken economy in food creation that's out there. Violet Witchell is my favorite example of this. She's Violet Cooks on TikTok and Instagram. She's huge there, millions of followers. And she has said publicly that her income from Substack is already 3 times greater than her earnings from brand deals across all of her other social platforms. Those brand deals are great. They're great for Violet. No part of me or the work my team does is trying to say, get rid of that. But a thing Violet has said is that it's hard to plan like a sustainable life with your family when these brand deals come inconsistently. And Substack and her Substack provides this reliable, recurring revenue through paid subscriptions on a thing that she owns herself and where she can do whatever she wants. The thing that I love about working at Substack and working with talent on Substack is that you really only make money if you do stuff that's authentic and good. There's not a lot of algorithm hacking that happens on the platform. It's mostly just people doing really good work and then being smart about finding an audience and promoting it. Violet's a great example of that. I promote this to all of my friends who are chefs and cooks too. Like most of the cooks and chefs I know, not all of them can be creators, but some of them can be. Even, paying their rent every month can be tough. And I tell them like, you're an amazing pastry chef. You should be on this platform. It's not going to take away your full-time job, but maybe it will pay your rent by showing off the recipes you make, the ideas you have, having something to say. And I mentioned the app because I think the real differentiator for Substack versus any other platform is distribution. It's the hardest thing for creators right now. And we have this app that is regularly surpassing X and Reddit in the App Store for new downloads, which means that there are millions of people who are one click away from subscribing to you and you getting their email address forever. And you can hit them with free and premium content. That can be video, that can be group chats, that can be lives, that can be newsletters and recipes. We're really solving that in a way that I think is so exciting. And I think we're just getting started on that like distribution angle that's happening in the app.
And just to be clear, Substack, you take 10% of any paid subscription, but you don't own any of the content, meaning the IP is retained by the creator. They can go and use that IP in their cookbooks and in other work. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's also free to use if you don't turn on paid subscriptions. If you just want to get started, download the app and start making stuff. And I feel strongly that there's no better way to sell a cookbook than starting a Substack. And it is actually surprisingly easy to just pick up and leave at any time if you wanted to, though I'm confident you would not.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems that way. I mean, you see people moving around from Substack and off Substack, and it seems it's frictionless. But I agree the app is, to me as a user of it, I'm pretty infrequently, but when I do dip in, it seems like your tech roadmap is pretty solid. You're going to be improving it and building it out. And I believe what you're saying. I know there's a lot of chatter about social networks, and Substack is trying to be a network and not a platform for creators. But I feel like you have to have the good stuff on the newsletter in the inbox for it to work. It's not just like posting X-related, X-like thoughts into the Substack app. That kind of doesn't work. Correct me if I'm wrong.
The thing that I think works is you have to have the goods in the inbox, but in the inbox at this point can mean anything. Jim Acosta left CNN last month and is running a daily live show on Substack, and he has more than 10,000 paid subscribers by just having this like intimate, accessible video. That's his delivery into the inbox. Jim is also posting on that notes feed with observations about the news of the day. I think Claire DeBurr, who to me, I like feel this very genuinely, is that she is like to me the best food writer in America. To me, no one writes about food in a way that helps break you free from recipes in the way Claire does. Claire was the chef at King, is the chef at Sissing House now. She has a wonderful Substack. And Claire posts to that notes feed on Substack with observations about writing and recipes and being a mom, and gets subscribers in a way that really works. And so I think you can use it like X or Blue Sky or Instagram in that way. And you'll get the subscribers if you also deliver on making something that feels essential and hits people's inboxes every week.
Yeah. Fair point. And I got to dip in more. I actually don't use it enough. So,
I mean, to be totally fair, I think actually the classic Substack audience is people who are like, dear God, I don't want another app, right? Like before I started working here, I felt that way too. And partially because I work here, I check it every day. But I also think another important thing with the app is that we have an algorithm specifically designed to drive subscriptions. The algorithm does not reward scrolling. It rewards consumption of the content the creator makes and subscriptions. And at the moment, I think that's working pretty well in the feed. But as that scales, it's so exciting to me of how much better it can be than other feeds as it rewards things that are different than other platforms.
Totally. And, it's not for clickbait. Like, you have to actually have the goods. I think you used that term. And I like that about Substack. I wanna jump into, a little bit of the conversation around, this, like, I would call it like a saturation of Substacks. I think when I wrote about it in 2020, there were very few, and I was so excited. And again, linked to that piece. But today, 5 years later, there's like way more, and way more good ones too. That's the other thing. It's not just people throwing shit against the wall. It's actually like a lot of high quality. So when you talk to creators about like this moment of, having 20 Substacks they subscribe to, I think I subscribe to 20, and I love it. Like, I'm not hitting unsubscribe that often. But what do you say to those folks, our listeners who maybe want to start their first Substack, today? Is there a future where there's room for everyone?
I think there really is. Like, I mean, I started this thing I'm doing at 0 subscribers. It's now like my favorite thing I do every week. I don't really have a background in this stuff. I have, especially in food, I have friends of mine with no social following just starting and seeing how it works. The thing we've added that I'm really excited about is that you no longer need to build like a website and design a website to have a Substack. You can just download the app and get started. And whether or not you want to, connect payments and let people pay you is totally up to you. But the thing that I think will continue to always work on Substack is that if you have something compelling to say that feels essential to people, whether you write it or record it in a video or do it as a voice memo or a group chat, people are going to find it in this app. We're going to make sure people find it. If it's compelling, people are going to share it. And I have heard the concern, certainly, that there might be a saturation at some point, but I don't think we're anywhere close to that. People are launching on Substack and crossing 6 figures in annual revenue regularly. Some of those people have external audiences that they bring over, but when they do that, they're also bringing a ton of new people into the network to pay for new creators. And I think especially in food, you can set a goal with your Substack that it's your full-time job and full-time income, or you can set a goal. Like, my goal is that it pays my mortgage, and it doesn't do that, but like, I am pushing for that. And I think that would be so cool if that happens. And I think that's a great goal that more people could aim for.
Yeah, man, I buy it. I think that's great. I think you're right. Like, I think there's a big audience out there, and really, as our appetites shift and the media landscape, specifically in food, shifts drastically, and there's been quite a few shutterings of establishment food media over the past couple of years. There's a really bright future in food on Substack. You mentioned Violet, you mentioned Claire. Love those Substacks. I'd like to get a few more of your favorites in the food space. Let's start with some big ones. I look at that leaderboard, and we've got friends of the show on there. We've got people I want to know on there. Some of the biggest ones. What are your favorites?
Yeah, I learned how to cook from reading Alison Roman's books. Like, I didn't grow up in a home with cooking. We ate out a bunch, but no one taught me how to cook. I started working at ESPN right after college in Central Connecticut with nothing to do, and just cooked my way through Alison's first book and then her second one. I think that like inspires a lot of the way I think about food at home. She's a legend. All of her recipes work perfectly. So it's obvious, but like, subscribe to Alison, make Alison's food. She's the greatest. I love,
and also I'll just jump in, just a terrific writer too. And
yes.
I've always said that on the show and off. It's like a really, really, really talented, voice-driven writer with something to say.
Yeah, her piece last year about her store and like just creativity, it was brilliant, and like one of my favorite things I read all year. So completely agree. Similarly, on like the writing front, I love when Emily Sundberg covers restaurants on Feed Me. It's the kind of thing that I would like hope to be able to do. She does real reporting. She has real information no one else has. She has great taste, a great point of view. She covers that side of the like dining scene incredibly well, and in a way that I think traditional food media struggles with at times due to a bunch of different kinds of pressures. So, it's not in every issue of Feed Me, but I mean, Feed Me is one of the things I read as soon as it hits my inbox, and I'm stoked when there's restaurant stuff in there. And then
We had Jay Lee on as well, the anonymous or semi-anonymous restaurant critic of Feed Me. We had him on the show and in the studio, and I'm watching his career grow too. So I love Emily's observations.
Jay Lee also great. And then no, I mentioned Claire earlier. I don't know if you would describe Claire as huge or growing on Substack. She's been around for a while. I think she turned on paid last year, but like I said, like if I were learning how to cook right now, kind of like what I did with Allison, I would certainly still consume all three of Allison's books. But I think what Claire does is just really unmatched, and her Substack is essential for anyone who is either a new novice home cook or an expert. There's really no one who to me does what she's doing.
Well, let's jump to maybe some, I don't know, or our listeners certainly don't know, some maybe like modest followings or even like growing followings, folks that you think we should definitely be introduced to.
Yeah, my friend Gabby Scelzo runs this Substack called Perfect City, covering New York restaurants. To me, it's like the perfect way to use Substack as a new writer creator on the platform in the app. It has a strong point of view, which is that New York City is a perfect restaurant dining out city, and here's why. Usually it's like a friend or a subscriber sends a question of, where should I take my parents on a Thursday night in New York? Gabby's very plugged in, gives recommendations there. There's a really good group chat to share recommendations in a way I like. And Gabby just has a really great voice and approach to this thing. And I think she's growing it really well. Our mutual friend, also Emily Wilson, who runs The Angel on Substack. I think about this the same way I think about sports on Substack. I work with some people who cover local sports on Substack and love it and make good money doing it because there's not great options for it. What Emily Wilson does with The Angel, covering the LA food scene by telling the stories of the people who are here and giving recommendations and building a good community around it, is a thing that I love and need as someone who lives out here in LA. But also I look around and I'm like, every city should have this. There's someone in every city who can do this kind of thing and who can do it independently. And I would love for Emily to be a model to other people to do more of that all across the country and across the world. And then Brooks Wrights, who runs a bunch of great restaurants in New Orleans, also has a wonderful Substack, and is just a great guy that I want to have on Bangers and Jams for a conversation soon.
Yeah, I love Brooks, and yeah, his restaurants in Charleston and New Orleans. And he's got a great voice because he's doing food, but he's also doing like his own like fashion and grooming picks, and it's a great mixed bag. I have a couple I want to shout out. I'm in the app now. I'm like, I don't want to like, make anyone feel bad if I don't mention you, but I try to mention as many as possible in our Friday newsletter. Mahira Rivers writes Sweet City, which focuses on bakeries in New York, and I just love Mahira's style and just like the work. She went on like a 50 chocolate chip cookie crawl over the course of 6 months. That was a good one. Kate, and I don't know if her last name is public, but Bite Sized, a pretty small Substack out of LA, but I love her voice and I love the way she has a real sense of LA events and just like news. It's kind of like a great complimentary follow to The Angel. If you want like good LA intel, those are two. I gotta shout out Cake Zine as well. Cake Zine is on Substack as well as a print publication. They're always publishing great stuff. That's Eliza's publication.
Those are all great ones. No, really good. Also, I forgot Mina Park, who is a co-owner of Baru, off and on will publish on Substack. Baru, I think, is one of the like three best restaurants in LA, one of the best restaurants in the country. And Mina is a beautiful writer about family and restaurants and the challenges of managing them. And I think is a really great model and inspiration for anyone who works in food and is interested in this kind of thing. And it's like, when would I have the time? What would I say? I would check out Mina, who's a star.
I love that. I have three more quickies. Snack Shot, Andrea Hernandez, CPG, Watchdog, hilarious writing, incredibly articulate and sourced journalism in the packaged food game. Why is this interesting? Been a longtime fan. I've written for them quite a bit. And I think that for a daily send, I'm always learning shit from them. And my last one is Vittles, which, we've had Jonathan on in our pages, and I hope to have him on the show at some point. But if you're going to London, Vittles is taken over. Wouldn't you agree?
There's nothing like Vittles. It's anything like, I look at what Jonathan does and I'm like, oh, that isn't a thing is ever attainable for me. He's like, oh, he's a one of one. It's incredible. Whenever I go to London, I do the deepest of deep dives into everything he's written and everything Vittles has done.
Well, I loved like walking through some favorites, and I'm going to link to all of those Substacks in the show notes, so you can take a spin through them and subscribe and support. I know we all have very finite budgets, but if you're going to support something like you're going to support a public radio or public television, think about supporting Substack. I say that having no stake in the game. I just think it's great to support creators. Let's talk about Grubstack. In a couple days, you're launching, I think it's the first kind of a digital food festival. And I wanted to have you on, Austin, just to talk about this because it's very smart, creative, bringing together many of the creators we mentioned, some other ones as well, for some programming. What is this Grubstack all about?
Yeah, we're really stoked for this. It starts in a few days. It is a 3-day live video food festival on Substack. We've done a few of these before in other categories. We did one around the election and politics. We did one in the finance business space in January to like look ahead to what's going to happen in the market. But food is one of the biggest categories on Substack. Food and drink publishers collectively earn more than $18 million annually in paid subscriptions. It's also, I think, to me, the category that pulls in community and video and collabs in a way that very few other categories can. And so there's going to be a lot of different things. There's going to be people doing solo cook-alongs. There's going to be people doing live conversations about like what's coming next in food. Claire de Burr is going to have a live conversation there. Notorious Foodie, who recently launched a big creator on TikTok and Instagram, is going to do a cooking demo. Ottolenghi is going to participate as well. We're about to have a bunch of names joining this thing. And the part of it that I'm most excited about is that we're watching this kind of like magic happen through Substack live video, which, if you're just looking at the product, kind of looks the same as a live you would watch on Instagram or TikTok. It's in your phone, it's accessible. But the way that live interacts with subscription is that it builds this incredible level of intimacy with these creators in a way that I think is just oftentimes not as powerful as it can be, like in your inbox, right? It's like, oh, I'm actually watching Caroline Chambers cook. And the real thing I'm doing is I'm watching Caroline Chambers make a mistake while she's cooking and fix it like on the fly. That's incredible, and a thing that oftentimes gets edited out of more highly produced videos on TikTok or YouTube. And so I had this conversation with Carlo Ali Music the other week about her quitting YouTube to go all in on Substack and Substack video in particular, after spending a ton of money trying to get a YouTube channel going. And we have Carl is going to be a part of this festival as well. And to me, Carl is a great example of someone who sees that this like lo-fi, intimate, accessible form of video creation like might actually be a very real future of this space, and often ways like what the audience wants. And so we will be showing that off for a few days right in the app.
Well, it's really, really cool that you're showing the products in real time, live video and how chat works, and really, I'm totally buying Substack stock. I know I can't do that, but I'm metaphorically speaking, at least, I feel like we're gonna hear a lot from Substack in the next 5 years. And Austin, I really appreciate the work you're putting in, and helping getting these voices out there, and honestly helping getting people paid for their work. I mean, it's a huge issue in food writing, and you're really helping folks out.
Thank you. We're very excited about it. The thing that I'm like feel the best about right now too is that people are coming to Substack and they have that guarantee that their audience will actually see their work. Like I saw a stat in a report that actually like Patreon put out the other day that fewer than like 50% of your audience on TikTok or Instagram is guaranteed to actually see the posts or stories you put up. And on Substack, 100% of your audience sees your post. They get notified of your live videos. They can tune in there. And then, like you said, some percentage of them can convert to paid subscribers and support your work long term, which is incredibly exciting.
Well, Austin, I'm going to link to all the Substacks and link to Grubstack in the show notes. Check it out. Thanks a lot. And definitely let's do this again in the studio. I really appreciate it.
Let's do it. I can't wait. Thanks so much, man.
This is Taste is hosted and produced by Matt Rodbard and me, Eliza Barbanel. The show is edited by lead producer Clayton Gumbert and supervised by Pat Stango, Director of Media Production and Development at Penguin Random House. Thanks to Shalia Harris and the production team at Penguin Random House. Theme music by Steve Rydell, logo and guest illustrations by Ellie Skurzat. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated on all cool things in the world of taste.